everybody. How's everybody doing today? Good afternoon and happy Friday. Thanks for joining us. My name is Todd Zent, and I'm the General Manager of Access Destination Services here in San Antonio and Austin. I also serve as the Vice President of Marketing for the Site Texas chapter. And thank you for joining us today for today's webinar. Today's webinar is how to transition your events to virtual and engage your audience. We still have some people kind of logging on and moving into the webinar today. So prior to getting started, I wanted to share some of the Site Texas initiatives that we're working on right now. Will, if you could just advance to that next slide, that would be great. All right. The first one is we're really ramping up on our virtual offerings. Obviously, everybody's pivoting, all the associations from live events to webinars and virtual happy hours and some of the podcasts, and we certainly embrace that opportunity. One of the things that you'll see coming down the pipe is the study group for the CITP, which is the Certified Incentive Travel Professional designation. So check your online social channels for that. The next slide, Will, is the social media presence. We are pretty active on all our channels, so if you're not part of our social scene, what we're doing is the board generally sends us content that they're seeing all over the web, and we are reposting all that information. So trying to kind of filter some of the different things that we're seeing from really industry influencers and kind of pushing them back out through our channels. So please take that opportunity, and if you haven't already, to follow us on all those different at Site Texas. The next initiative that we're working on is our next event, which is in conjunction with our sister chapter, Site Mountain West, which includes certainly a fan favorite, which is Simon T. Bailey. So if you enjoy seeing him, he's fantastic and is always uplifting. So please join us for that, and you can certainly find him and all the information about that webinar on our website. The next one and the last one I'll go through is the Site Global has reduced the membership fees for a couple weeks to $285. So if you've been interested in joining or rejoining the site, please do so. They're also running the promotion which talks about any current members. If you do refer to someone, you will get $100 off your membership for next year. All right, so with that said, I want to go ahead and jump into our webinar today. Again, how to transition your events to virtual and engage your audience. This is certainly really relevant, I think. I've been on several Zoom calls lately, and some of them with large audiences have certainly been cringeworthy, so this is we're very fortunate to have Will Curran, founder and Chief Event Einstein for Endless Events, here with us today. He's definitely no stranger to producing live and hybrid and streaming events. His clients really have believed in this strategy even before COVID-19. Will is certainly very impressive. When I spoke to him a couple weeks ago, I didn't even need to have any coffee. He's certainly high energy. He's exciting and just kind of mesmerizing when you start to listen to him, which I know you guys will. A little bit about his background. He was named one of the under 40 event industry leaders, as well as 35 entrepreneurs under the age of 35. In addition, Inc. magazine named him the coolest college startup, and I can't wait to hear a little bit more about that from him. What's really impressive about these accolades is really he achieved all these before graduating from college, so definitely a go-getter. Will's been producing events since high school, including starting his first company. And if you want to learn more about Will and the companies he's currently serving, check out his LinkedIn page. So Will, enough from me, buddy. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Todd. That was such an awesome introduction. Yeah, no, the Inc. magazine thing was pretty cool to do. That feels like a lifetime ago because I'm very much out of college now. But definitely, I am all about like jumping the gun and getting things going and not waiting and seizing the day 100%. I wanted to give some shout outs, guys. This is going to be the most engaging webinar hopefully you've attended in the last couple of weeks. I'm really excited to also hear from you, Lauren. Thank you for joining us today. And let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you guys can see me nice on the big screen as well. So yeah, when it comes to virtual events, we want to make sure that we're having an engaging experience. So I want to start by getting you guys really, really engaged. So first of all, I have to give shout outs to everybody who's in the chat right now. If you aren't in the chat right now, I asked the question what you guys had for breakfast or lunch. So go ahead and post that in the chat. I think Melissa takes the cake though, because I can't tell if it's for lunch or breakfast, but she had pasta. But Julie's feeling really sad that she had yogurt for breakfast. So hopefully we can get you a little bit more breakfast as well. So what we're going to do is I want to get you guys warmed up, utilizing the functionality of Zoom and getting excited. Thank you, Lorraine. All those sauteed vegetables and fried eggs. That sounds delicious. Terry, oh, now everyone's coming out of the woodwork. Make sure to switch that panel, the 2 button next to 2 in the colon. Change it from all panelists to all panelists and all attendees. I want you guys to talk to each other and get engaged. So we're going to get a little warmed up. I want to make sure everyone's awake. So you guys are going to see, click on the participants view in the webinar. You're going to see a button that says raise hands. Again, click participants. You're going to see a button that says raise hands. Don't raise your hands quite yet. Don't get too excited. We're going to do what's called a virtual wave. So I want to make sure everyone's excited and ready to go. So click on panelists, hover over that raise hands button. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Put your hands down, raise those hands. All right, all right. On 3, I'm going to count to 3. Everybody raise those hands all at once. Ready? 1, 2, 3, raise your hands up. All right, all right, all right. Come on, everybody, get those hands up. Raise your hands, raise your hands. All right, everyone click a button. All right, now everyone lower your hands. All right. Now everyone raise your hands. Some people are slacking. All right. Everybody lower your hands. All right. Raise your hands. Lower your hands. All right. There's some people still asleep over there because they thought this was a webinar. They have it like minimized right now and they're doing their email. Get out of your email. Time to get engaged. Time to talk about virtual events. I know you guys are sick and tired of hearing about it at this point, but we're going to get really tactical and make sure this is fantastic for you guys. All right. Next thing that we're going to do for you guys, let me get some stuff moved around. I want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to obviously not only chat with each other within the chat, but I also want to give you guys the opportunity to collaborate and work together, right? That's what events are all about. So inside the chat, there is a link to a Google Doc. That Google Doc is available for any one of you guys to edit right now. Right now, I'm going to put a note in here, right? Whatever you want. Take notes and collaborate. This Google Doc is for you guys to work on together. I'm going to leave it open and forever there for you guys to post links, to share ideas, whatever you want to do in there. It's your guys' Google Doc. I don't even mind. So I will also, in there too, I will also post a link to my LinkedIn as well. So if you would like to connect with me, like Todd said, just give me a shout. So in there is my LinkedIn, and I'm going to share a ton of resource links like checklists, webinars, calculators, everything you guys need will be all in that Google Doc. Post the links in there as well. So get that Google Doc going. All right, what are the ground rules we got? Also, we got polling going on as well. If you're not keeping up, you guys gotta go. Let's go, let's go. So we're doing a poll right now. I would love to know from the audience of those who are watching right now, are you a vendor or a supplier, or are you a planner? Love to hear from you guys. So utilize that polling functionality on there as well. All right, I only got 54% of you guys going. While you guys are getting that going, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background into me. So I own a company called Endless Events. We're a virtual event production company. So we're literally talking to a lot of clients. How do you take those in-person experiences and recreate them virtually? We primarily work on corporate clients, but we also serve things like big marketing agencies and also nonprofits, everything in between as well. So, oh, I almost forgot. I like Jill says she's a supplanner. So is that supplier planner? That's awesome. Or is it like a super planner? One other functionality I forgot to mention, there's also the Q&A functionality. That's the best place to ask all the questions. I might miss it in the chat because you guys are using the chat all day long. Oh, and by the way, those of you who are responding in the chat, use that polling functionality. We want to make sure we're using the polling functionality so I get every vote in there as well. But utilize the Q&A functionality. One cool feature enabled right now, most people don't know this, is that in Zoom, I have the ability that when you ask a question, the rest of you guys can upvote those questions because we're going to get a lot of questions in the next hour. I want to make sure the best ones rise to the top and the ones that you guys are all thinking about go to the top. So when you ask questions, have that Q&A panel open. And when you see a question answered that you like, upvote it. And also as well, if you do have a question, and we've been already doing Q&A for a little bit, check that answered column as well. You might see that a question's already been answered on there as well. So yeah, definitely use that Q&A functionality. Shout outs to Rebecca for helping us in the background. Thank you so much, Rebecca. You are fantastic. All right. So only 73% of you guys are 100% engaged right now. I'm really sad because that's kind of an average number on there. We want to get to 100%. So if you're watching right now, make sure you have the webinar full screened right now, stay engaged, or at least like full screened on one side and like Google Doc on the other. All right, so let's go ahead and end the polling on here. Here's the results that we got right now. Majority of you are planners on here. So I'm going to skew your guys' help primarily towards planners. For all of our vendors and suppliers, don't worry. There's still going to be a lot of learnings for you guys as well. All right. Let's see. Maybe I want to do another, let's see. Is there another poll in here maybe I want to do before we jump into it? Let's do this one because this one I always forget about. How many of you have planned a virtual event or are planning a virtual event as well? I'd love to have this feedback as well. Are planned or planning? Awesome, 50%. These numbers are a lot better than last week. So keep them coming on in. Right now we're about like 50%. Get your vote in. Get it in now get your vote in while you can. While I get some information brought open for you guys as well. All right. Cool. All right. So, man, you guys are getting it. You guys got to stay engaged. All right. 50-50 basically right now. 55% of you said you have not planned or not planning one. I'm guessing you guys want to though, because that's why you guys are on this webinar. But 45% says yes. That is fantastic and really, really great to know as well. All right. And let's see what else we got here. Yeah, let's dive into some content. Are you guys ready to learn a little bit about virtual events? If you are excited about virtual events and this is like really jazzed you, actually better yet, let's start a conversation in the chat before I do. Well, we'll do it after we do this. If you're ready to dive into some content and some learnings, post a number 1 in the chat. Let's blow up that chat right now. Put a number 1 in the chat if you're ready to go. All right. All right. Looking good. All right, look at that chat blowing up on there. Again, remember to change over from all panelists. Click on all panelists and change it to all panelists and all attendees so everyone can see your answers on here as well. And then I'm going to post up a question on here. And all right, you guys are ready to go. While I'm getting the content pulled up, I asked you guys a question in the chat. I'd love for you guys to answer this question, not just yes or no, but why. So I posted a question in the chat. I'd love to start a discussion. Do you think that this is going to happen and why? So yes and why, not just, or no and why, not just no, not just never, say and why. Why do you think? And while I get this fired up and good to go for you guys. All right, we're going to try to burn through this content so we can get your guys' question and answer. And if you have questions right now about virtual events, it doesn't have to be about what I'm about to talk about. Please post it in the chat. If I answer it because of the content, even better. So feel free to jump on in and ask questions right now. All right, let's go ahead and dive on in, shall we? All right, so you guys are here to learn about how to convert your in-person events to virtual. You guys obviously know I'm Will Curran. I love to have animated avatars of myself. I've been doing a lot of virtual events. I've been living online for a long period of time. So, you know, when it comes to living virtually, I remember growing up in my first chat rooms where I had friends I had never met before in my life, where I had, you know, to build relationships and had, you know, no idea if I'd ever meet these people in person. So it is possible to build relationships online. So I totally understand it. I grew up online. For those who haven't heard of Endless Events, again, virtual event production company. If you want to know more about us, we'll give you guys a chance at the end as well. Important things for those who don't know, I actually have 3 different podcasts out there as well. So I'm going to post links to these in the chat. But for those who haven't heard, we have a podcast called Event Icons where we interview the icons of the events industry. We also have another podcast called Event Tech Podcast where we talk about nothing but event tech. And then we also have a third podcast, which is all about talking about the things no one else is talking about in the events industry. We call it Event Brew. If you've ever heard of the show The View, it's kind of like that. We react to the news and what's going on in the events industry and kind of talk about what no one else is talking about in the rest of the world. So super duper exciting on there as well. So go ahead and check those out as we go. All right, guys, this is not the virtual events presentation that you're looking for. Everybody right now is asking the question, what's the best platform that we should use? What's, you know, what's this, what's that, you know, what sort of technology should I use for my one-on-one networking and things like that? But I challenge you guys to think a little bit differently. This is the time for event professionals, suppliers, planners, whoever you are, to start thinking strategically. all this entire time, you know, for years and years and years, we've been stuck in design and execution. A lot of us stuck in just execution. You know, we're only getting paid for doing the actual work. We're only getting paid for our chairs. We're only getting paid for our audiovisual, whatever it may be. Instead, what I want you guys to do is challenge you guys to move into strategy. Start thinking about the larger objectives when it comes to your events. What is the why behind your entire event? You know, Simon Sinek talks about it, right? That far too often that we love to sit in the, you know, the how and the what that we do, right? Apple computers, I make laptops, right? They're beautifully designed, but not many people say why. The idea of thinking differently. And for planners and for everybody in the events industry, everybody is at ground zero. We are starting fresh, right? A lot of us have the chance to redesign our events 100% from the ground up because there's this whole new space, this whole new venue that is the internet and the digital aspects of it. So this is your time to start thinking strategically. So what I challenge you to do is to start thinking strategically. So I have a whole Whiteboard Wednesday. If you've never heard of Whiteboard Wednesday, it's our event series where we literally break down complex topics like how to move into strategy outside of design, and we break it down into super simple, easy things to understand as well. I'm gonna share a link to this one on here. Let's get a link going. But the idea behind it is that you guys need to start thinking strategically about the why you're doing these sort of things. And I think far too many people right now are asking us what platform should be using or how can I do this engaging thing? But rather more so, you need to be thinking to yourself, well, what's the true objective I'm trying to do? For example, a lot of people come to us and say, you know, I'm looking for an expo hall right now, and I need a way for my exhibitors to and sponsors to get value on here. And I say, okay, cool. And they go, yeah, you know, we want the ability to have, for example, a 3-dimensional exhibit hall that people can walk through in 3 dimensions. I'm like, cool. Does that sound like, first question I ask is, does that even sound like a good experience to you? And most people say like, no, I don't want to ever do that in my life. But better yet, I think that when it comes to the question that comes next is like, okay, if I can't do like a 3-dimensional exhibit hall, like, how do I have exhibitors? And then I say, okay, well, why do exhibitors even exist, right? So I'll post that in the chat. If you have an answer to that question, why do you think that exhibitors even exhibit when it comes to events? Go ahead and post that in the chat. I'd love to hear from you guys. And there's a link right there in the chat also to the Whiteboard Wednesday, right? Networking, deeper than that, Michelle. Think a little bit deeper than that. Not only just networking, but what related to networking, right? Why do exhibitors come to the event? Right? And why do exhibitors exhibit at events? And then the second question I'll ask is, I want you to be thinking about as well. There you go. Lorraine says to expand their market. Face-to-face interaction. But Randy, why does that face-to-face interaction exist? Sherry says it, to sell. Boom, there's one of them right there. Exhibitors exhibit to sell. They want to get more product out. They might need appointments, so then that way they can get quotes out, whatever it may be, right? Celeste says it, leads, right? Maybe to jump up a database of people they can email and get their marketing information to as well, right? Right? Randy, build relationships like my past clients, right? I want to be able to see them face to face so I can build a relationship with them. So if they bought from me last year, they'll want to buy from me again, right? Once they get to see me face to face, all these things like that as well. Now the question becomes, okay, now we understand the why exhibitors exhibit. Now the question becomes, how can we allow exhibitors to sell? How can we allow them to build relationships? How can we help them, what was the other one on here as well? Expand their market and maybe build up their list. These are all things that have existed inside of digital marketing for years, right? If you imagine, like, what would the world of you know, you're thinking, I think that events were the only way that people expanded their market or built relationships or generated leads. Like, there's way more stuff out there. So think about that why, then you can think about the how. So for example, let's talk about selling, that they need to be able to sell things. So let's say there's a captive audience ready to buy. They're looking at all these products and they're like, I'm ready to buy something today. Well, how can you create that buying experience online? Well, think about for yourself as a person who roams the internet. How do you buy things right now? Right? I'm not going to give you guys the answer because I think it's better yet for me to leave you churning and thinking, but how do you buy? Well, okay, on the internet, I buy things doing this. Well, how can you maybe recreate that experience then and the how and the what in your virtual event as well? So you guys are awesome. Next question you want to think about as well is that's thinking just the exhibitors. That's one stakeholder. Now think about the behavior that you're trying to create when it comes to attendees. Why do attendees care about exhibitors? So I'll post a nice big space in the chat, so that way we have this separated on here. Boom. Post in the chat, why do you think attendees care about exhibitors in the exhibit halls? Post in the chat. Joanne says to touch and feel. Maybe that physically feel the product, right? Ooh, Greg has a good point. To learn, right? Maybe I didn't even know this product existed. Maybe an exhibitor is doing little mini teaching sessions there, right? Knowledge, nice. To see the products, to educate. Laura, I love it. They want to be inspired. They don't even know that a walking robot existed, and they get to see that for the first time, and they're like, man, walking robots, this is crazy. Celeste, the latest trends. You guys are getting, I think you guys are getting this. So the question is, why do attendees care about the exhibit hall? How can you do that online? How can you inspire people online? All right. I think you say your name, Casimiro. Is that right? You're going to kill me if I say your name wrong, so I'm so sorry. But it says free pens. Well, if free pens is the only reason why people go to exhibit halls, let's just start shipping free pens out to everybody in the mail, right? So you guys are getting this, though. So I'm going to keep moving on because you guys are getting it. Think strategic. Let's get strategic and think about our event. So I want to start off, again, with the why. Think about the why of the event. The next thing you need to be thinking about, though, too, is your attendee personas. If you've never heard of what a persona is, maybe everybody in the chat real quick, or not in the chat, everybody who's here, raise your hand if you've heard of what a persona is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Okay, so like less than 10% of you have heard of what a persona is. This is something for you guys to start thinking about when it comes to your attendees. You need to be thinking of them not in terms of like big groups, like my attendees do this. You might have subgroups within that. A lot of people get caught up in technology because they're like, well, my attendees, they're really, they're an older demographic. They don't use they don't like know how to use Zoom or whatever it may be. I'm concerned about that when it comes to design my platform. Well, when it comes to that, what if there's also another persona within your group that's a millennial who's like totally gets technology and it's a second nature to them? You have to build out these personas of what they look like, and they're basically fictional representations of your attendees. You can start having conversations about the design and the execution, but you have to start with those personas. Nick Borelli, who's an awesome friend of ours and also co-host of Event Brew, did a whole Whiteboard Wednesday on this. It's in the chat. Bookmark that. Check it out. If you've never heard of persona, check it out. If you have heard of a persona, check it out. It's going to blow your mind. Think about that first, again, before the hows, the what's, the platforms, all that sort of stuff on there as well. All right, I literally to talk about strategy all day long, and if you think that you need help with strategy and you'd love to sit down and do a strategy session, I'll include a link down below to be able to set up a strategy session with us, or to be able to do some training with your team to start thinking strategically. But let's assume that you have your strategy. Let's say you built out your entire plan. You have this massive event strategy, and strategy is different than design. Now let's move on to the design, which is the planning portion. It's the part we all want to definitely move more in. Some of us are trying to move into, but a lot of us as planners get stuck in design mode, right? Planning and coming up with ideas and all these things like that as well. So when it comes to design, think about your content. That's the first thing you need to start about when it comes to designing a virtual event as well. Make sure that you're thinking about content. Reason why this is important. Before, we used to have 3-day events with like 10 hours of content, with a lunch break and then a happy hour at the end. You can't do that virtually. I did a poll for 1,000 planners on a webinar last week, and I asked, how long do you think your attendees can sit in one single spot and watch a screen? 99% of people said some iteration of less than 30 minutes. Again, 99% of people said less than 30 minutes. I'm trying to burn through this content as fast as possible because, you guys need to stand up and start moving around and everything like that. But people can't sit and watch content for a long period of time. When's the last time you logged on YouTube and watched a 30-minute long YouTube video? No. Lorraine asked, are we recording this? Question is yes. And we'll talk about asynchronous content. So think about how you can make your content more digestible, more quick. But also as well, how can maybe you spread it out? This is good for education too, because for educational principles, I'm not like a teacher or anything like that, but we all know that if I give you a ton of information and 8 hours worth of content, you really only process 15 minutes worth of it out of a whole conference, right? I leave conferences and I'm like, if I get one thing out of this, I'll be happy, right? But we expect everybody to keep all this knowledge in their brain. It's so stressful. Instead, here's about an idea of design, right? If the point of education and getting people to absorb concepts, instead of doing a 3 days at 8 hours each, what if instead you did 24 days at an hour each? Or better yet, maybe you do 48 days long event, but 30 minutes each. Just think about maybe how you can redesign this. Before we were limited, imagine renting a venue for 48 days. That's expensive. Online isn't that expensive. You can totally do it all day long. All right. Platforms and technology is the area everybody loves to live in. Here's the thing that to keep in mind when it comes to tech. It's changing so fast right now. You should be willing to want to work with a partner who's going to be willing to be flexible for it to have integrations. I think I'll talk about integrations a little bit later, but you want to make sure that the platform and the technology is flexible for what you need to do. Do not start with the platform or the tech. Start with the why and the strategy. If you are starting with the platform or the tech, it's like saying, I'm going to pick my venue before I know what I'm going to do in that venue, right? So, all right, I think you guys are getting this. This might be old news for some of you guys too. So, a couple of weeks into this. All right. Important things to know about your technologies too. You got to make sure that the cybersecurity is really, really rock solid when it comes to this sort of stuff. Far too many people are getting stuck right now, not thinking about the idea of cybersecurity. Now you're putting all your attendees' data online, and it's all online now, guys. This is so important for in-person events. If you weren't thinking about it for in-person events, you need to absolutely be aware of it. Did a whole webinar explaining some things that you need to be aware of when it comes to cybersecurity for events. There are also some tips as well to get you ahead for in-person events as well when we did this. So go and check that webinar out. You need to be concerned about cybersecurity. Let's do a quick straw poll real quick. So maybe if everyone wants to lower their hands real quick, I'm going to ask a question. You don't want to have your hands raised for this one. How many people here use a password manager that isn't built into their browser? So you're not using Chrome to save your passwords. You're using something like LastPass, Dashlane, and that every single one of your passwords is unique, very long, has multiple symbols, all those things like that. How many of you guys are using that? I'm going to give some shout outs to some people. Melissa, Sherry, Lorraine, Jill, Randy. You guys are the only ones doing it right now. The rest of you guys need a password manager. If you are not using one right now, you do not understand some basics of cybersecurity, please watch that webinar. It's going to change your life. It might freak you out a little bit, but honestly, you need to be aware of things like secure passwords and everything like that as well. So you guys can put your hands down. Thank you guys so much for volunteering as well. Watch that webinar, the rest of you guys who didn't raise your hands. All right. On to synchronous, asynchronous. So Lorraine asked the question, are we recording this? That's a great example of an asynchronous activity. We can be doing an event that's synchronous right now. Like you have to be here to enjoy this. But what's happening is we're going to record this. I'm sure it's going to get posted on like a place for you guys to watch it afterwards. I'm really sorry if you're watching this recording, you didn't get to enjoy the chat and get to see like, all the cool comments everybody's putting in the chat. Speaking of which, by the way, how many of you guys enjoy watching content live versus watching it asynchronously? So my question will be, if you prefer to watch content asynchronously, in the chat, post your favorite onomatopoeia. So an onomatopoeia is like a sound that makes like a crack or a bam, a wow, kazam, a zap, a meow. Like post your favorite onomatopoeia if you enjoy watching content asynchronously, like when you want, right? All right. No one's answering. Zoom. Oh, there we go. I like it. Oh, everyone's just thinking of their onomatopoeia. That's all good. Boom. I like boom. That's one of my favorites, Roxanne. It's important because right now there's some people here who love to watch their favorite shows live, right? Like you're watching the show on cable as it's happening and you get it live. However, think about Netflix and how much that changed it for all of us. It introduced us to binge watching, the idea that you can watch this on your own time, fit it into your own schedule, everything like that. Think about that when it comes to your attendees. Think about the synchronous aspect of your event that happens live that you can only get when it happens, but also the asynchronous level as well. And think about how maybe you can take that live content and repurpose it later for asynchronous as well. Also, think about how you're going to repurpose your content too. Before, if you wanted to capture every single breakout room that was happening in your event, you'd have to have cameras in all the rooms. And if you wanted to make it good, you needed 2 cameras, right? You need to make sure that there was someone to edit it. Oh, Randy's got a crazy one. How's it? That's a crazy onomatopoeia. I don't think I've ever heard that one before. You want to be thinking about repurposing your content. Take all of the content that's happening with your virtual event and repurpose it. That means turn it into smaller clips, right? Take that hour-long talk, which is already too long, turn it into like 5, 6, 7, 1 minute long clips. Best part about turning in all those short clips, you can post them on social media. If you're doing a big conference with lots of talks, imagine you could create 300, 400 social media clips from all those little talks, little clips that you have on here. Now you have all of your social media content for the rest of the year. And now you can use that content to promote next year's. So people are wondering, like, what am I going to get in value? Well, they're going to see clips that are 1 minute long of all the content you're putting out there as well. We did a Whiteboard Wednesday all about this. I linked it into the chat as well. So go ahead and post and check that out if you want to understand the idea of repurposing and how you can use this content that you're creating and recording to turn it into more ticket sales. It's just an awesome strategy. It's what we do at Endless. It will blow your mind and we'll have insane results on here. All right, let's check in on the Google Doc crew. All right, nice. You guys are starting to put some links and stuff in there. I appreciate you guys taking shout outs to the Google Doc crew who's all taking notes ferociously in there as well. You guys are awesome. All right, then moving on to literal design. You got to be thinking about design when it comes to your virtual events, right? And this is literally like web design stuff. Understanding things like making sure your website is responsive. You got to make sure it works on all devices. Yeah, make sure it's beautiful, that it's on brand and everything like that as well. There is no reason why your virtual event should at all be a poor experience. It shouldn't look like it's in the 90s. It shouldn't look like it's in the 2000s. There's systems and awesome abilities for you to have a modern experience online. I challenge you so much. Please make it an awesome design experience. There's no excuses. Pro tip when you're looking at platforms and technologies, if their website that like their front-facing website isn't beautiful and lovely and a great experience, I can promise you their product is not going to be great and not be a lovely experience as well. Pro tip, look at their website. If their website's not great, their product's not great. Because if they don't take time to make even their website an enjoyable experience, what makes you think that the product's going to be any better? All right. If you're like this right now and you're feeling like taking your computer off your desk and throwing it in the trash because you're just so frustrated and technology is just so much, and Will's throwing out terms like responsive and synchronous and all these things like that as well, don't worry at all. I got you guys. I got a checklist built for you guys. So we built a virtual event planning checklist. It has all the things you need to be thinking about when it comes to your events. Go ahead and go check that out. Post a link to it in chat. We literally created the virtual event planning checklist, but all the things you need to be thinking about when it comes to planning your events as well. So literally it shot up on Google to like ranked #1 because literally it's just so popular right now. So go ahead and go check that out. All right, then let's move into execution. We talked about strategy. We talked about design. Now let's talk about the physical execution. I got some quick pro tips for you guys when it comes to this. First thing that you need to do is understand some you need to understand some internet terms on here as well. Let me post a link to this in the chat. Right now we're all online. Understanding terms like, for example, what's the difference between a gigabyte and a gigabit is very, very important. For example, whenever you're talking about internet, here's a pro tip. Whenever you're talking about internet speeds, never talk about internet speeds in terms of gigabytes per second. Instead, talk about gigabits per second. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, I've heard of a gigabyte. What is that then? Gigabytes are used to measure storage space. So for example, my files are 1 gigabyte in size. However, if you're talking about internet speed, it needs to be, you might say, I need a 1 gigabit per second internet speed. Why is this important? You might be thinking this just seems so small. Well, I'll tell you why it's important for in-person events, and I'm going to save you thousands of dollars. If you go to a venue right now and you say, I need a 100 megabyte per second internet connection, hardlined in the corner, ready to go for these 3 days, I immediately, because we do internet for events too, would know that you have no idea the difference between a megabyte and a megabit. What do you think? The same way that when you used to go to your AV vendors and say, can I have that doohickey thing that makes the lights go blah, 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 right? I'm going to be like, wow, she obviously has no idea. He has no idea what he's talking about. I'm going to give him the most expensive bill they ever imagined, and we'll see if they even notice. They'll probably just say yes to that bill, right? Because they have no idea what they're doing. But when you come in educated and you know what the difference is, and you can say, I need a 1 gigabit per second Ethernet connection, over in the corner, whatever it is. They go, oh, wow, they know what they're talking about. I'm not going to screw them over. So go ahead and check that link out. It's literally a glossary of all the internet terms you understand. Reason why it's important for virtual events is that you need to be able to communicate about internet in terms related to internet. For example, telling your presenters they need to be on a hard-lined Ethernet connection to their internet, right? Terms like saying you need at least a 30 megabit per second upload speed for it to do your presentation, not just download, but upload too, right? Understanding these terms will make you a more powerful supplier, powerful planner, all that stuff like that as well. Next thing you think about, just like when you were planning your in-person events, you need a team. Do not rely on trying to do this all yourself as well. And I realize I'm a little biased in saying this because we're a company that provides teams and produces virtual events, but far too many planners I see out there going, I'm going to find the platform. I'm going to find all the entertainers. I need to find the speakers. I need to do this. I need to do that. And then it's like walking into saying, I'm going to plan the in-person event. I'm going to do all the catering myself. I'm going to print all the badges myself. I'm going to, find all the activities and lead all the activities myself. I'm going to lead all the sessions and be the moderator in all the sessions. Like, not possible, right? You want to be the strategic head of everything and have your team below it. So when it comes to people and teammates, you want to be thinking about, for example, you're going to need somebody who is tech savvy, who can help people troubleshoot through things, right? This might be like your tech support person, right? Then you might also need somebody who understands how to make the microphone sound really good, make sure the webcam's working and making sure that their internet speed is good. You might need that like AV guy on your team. You might need someone also who's just there to help handle little small things. You might need a web designer on your team who understands a little bit of HTML and knows how to make websites look really pretty. You might need a graphic designer who can make graphics on the fly when you need that graphic right below the live stream. Think about building out your dream team for people to help you out. This is also, very meta. This is also how the events industry is going to survive on this. We can't do this alone. Tap into the people and the partners that you know who are doing things awesome. Go to your catering company and say, we're doing this event. Usually it's all in our single state. How can I maybe get catering to everybody simultaneously? The catering company will say, thank God we got some business. Let's figure this out. Let's get creative. Challenge them and they will help you get through this as well. And then if you are curious about working with Endless, this is a question I get all the time, so I just want to make sure it's here. We do have a pricing page on our site. Just go ahead and check out pricing page. Just go helloendless.com/pricing, and that will be very, very helpful for you guys as well. All right, I've talked way too much on here. Here's all my contact information on here as well. If you guys want to follow me on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those things like that as well. Go ahead and go check that out. Now is the time for Q&A. You guys have started having some Q&A come in as well. I love it. I'll start with, so right now, get your questions in. Post them in the Q&A panel, please. I'd love to answer your questions. Anything about virtual events, transition, technology, whatever you guys want to know. I am a size 9 shoe. I'm not wearing my lime green shoes. I'm doing really bad. I'm wearing my purple shoes right now. But we're size 9 shoe, and that cat over there's name is Wally, in case you're curious. All right, so I'm going to answer a really easy question first. As Lorraine said, how are you supposed to have all these windows open at the same time? Here's the important thing of why I do this, right? Well, I guess really quickly, curious, how many people are struggling with like all the windows open and juggling all the millions of things going on? Raise your hands real quick. Gives me a chance to sip a little bit of water. So the important thing, it's definitely, Lorraine, I'm not expecting you to have all the windows open at once. The idea behind this, though, is I gave everybody a channel to engage the way they want to engage on here. Some people are really chatty. They want to use the chat. Jill says, I have 3 monitors. That definitely helps. But one thing that's important about this is that I, as a presenter, want to engage you. And I, almost as like a virtual event producer, producing a little mini event for you guys, I want to give the channel which engage. I'm not just only giving you the Q&A panel. For example, I'm not a huge fan of when I hop on webinars and I'm presenting and I only have a Q&A panel to engage with you. I will always break that mold. I'll send out a Google Doc link. I will, I'm gonna tell people to tweet me. Dear God, I want people to talk to me. I want to get people all the way to engage me throughout the entire presentation. And the idea is that just like when you had in-person events, you had the one person who sat in the back who was just like, chilling, sending texts. They're just listening. And they're absorbing it just by listening, right? They're not like fully engaged listening. But then you have the one person who's in this front row center with like a notebook and is ready to taking notes like crazy, right? Then you have like the couple people who are listening, but they're also talking in the back, right? Everybody has a different way to engage. Then you have people like me sometimes who like, I just go do the networking all day. I just go do brain dates all day long or whatever it may be, right? Everybody has a different way they're going to engage when it comes to an event. Your job as a planner is to give them those options, to not force them to have one single thing. So that's actually, I'm not expecting you to actually have all the Google Docs open and things like that. But if you are a Google Doc note taker, boom, I just gave you the option. If you love to chat, boom, that's an option. If you just love to ask Q&A, boom, that's an option. If you're more of a planner and you like to ask polls and things like that, boom, there's a poll as well. And I just launched another poll on here as well, so you guys can pull it on up. So yeah, hopefully that helps. All right. Jill, can you expand a little bit on your question? I'm not quite sure what you mean. I'd love to have it. So I'm going to ask Lorraine's next question. What are the thoughts on hybrid events for both live and virtual? Hybrid is the future, guys. It is the future. That's why this time to experiment with virtual events and try to get your first full virtual event online is so incredibly important right now. Because when we go back to in-person experiences, which I agree with you guys. You guys are all saying, no, in-person experiences are hard to top and everything like that. I agree. But what's going to happen in the short to long-term future is you're going to have attendees who are afraid to leave their houses. You're going to have people who are afraid to travel, right? You're going to have people who also as well, they might be afraid, but they might say to themselves, I went to 20 conferences last year because I needed to get all that networking. Well, I attended one virtual event and got just as many leads, education, whatever it may be. You know what? I'm going to go to one conference now. And what they're going to do is if you do not present them the option to join in, even if you're doing in-person experience, to go hybrid and to tune in and engage those communities together, like you're going to be losing out on an audience and they're going to totally forget about your brand. I think it's important too when you're thinking about virtual is that it's giving you a chance to experiment to engage the virtual audience. When we go back to in-person expenses, the new challenge is going to be, how do I combine and mesh the audiences together? How can the virtual audience talk to the in-person audience? And how can the in-person audience engage with the virtual audience? How can virtual exhibitors, work with, in-person attendees who are wanting to buy things? All those things like that as well. It's the future. You're going to see a lot more content, but right now it's all virtual. I mean, like everybody's going virtual. Just so everyone knows too, like I have events in Q1 that are going all virtual. That's a year from now. It's crazy. All right. Hopefully that answers your question. Feel free to expand. You can always ask multiple questions too if I didn't answer your question 100%. Kevin asked, is there something in the industry known as virtual speakers? Because I just imagine the dynamic is much more different than the audience live. Yes. You need to be, when you're talking to speakers, need to be talking to them about like, hey, how are you going to engage them virtually and all these things like that. These are all incredibly important questions to ask. I will tell you right now that I know how to interact with a virtual audience. Hopefully you guys are engaged and enjoying this. Please tell me yes. Help my ego. But I think far too many people are like, oh yeah, that presenter, they're great live. Let's put them in virtual. Then they get on. That person has a laptop on their lap. They're in their living room. They don't have a nice microphone. They don't have a nice webcam. They don't have a nice backdrop. They don't have a cat. Where is he? They don't have a cat named Wally, right? And they're not engaging in high energy enough. And then they go, man, he was great live. Why didn't do it? It's a totally different space when you're online, for example. For example, I think I do successfully when I do this because I understand Zoom really well. I understand this tool ins and outs. So whenever you're hiring speakers, you need to make sure that they understand your platform in and out and that you're talking to them about saying, what's your plan to get everybody engaged? And your presenters should be able to tell you how. I'll tell you right now, I did a webinar where I only had the option to communicate with the audience through Q&A. They could only ask us questions through the Q&A panel. There's no chat. There's no upvoting technology, anything like that as well. Do you think that I, as a presenter, wanted to have a boring experience? No. So you know what I did? At the beginning of the panel, I said, tweet me. And I was tweeting people while I was talking because I knew there was people who wanted engagement or thriving upon it. And I took upon myself as a speaker to push that envelope and push my performance. Who do you think was the most memorable person on the panel? Was it the person who was just answering the questions? But probably me, because all these people on Twitter were talking to me. There's still people tweeting me on there as well. So talk to your presenters about what they're going to do to help keep you engaged. Totally different ballpark for sure. Jill says, wasn't really a question, but I get involved in the chat and Q&A and forget to pay attention to the message from the speaker. The reason that I'm there. And that's okay. But here's what's interesting, Jill. I think what's really cool about this is that there's going to be a recording of this. You might have caught one or two things. You can go back and listen to it again at any time and go re-listen to it. And I'm guessing a lot of people are going to re-listen to this at like half speed because Will talks 1,000 miles an hour, right? But that's okay. We're in this space where you have the ability to have this recorded. I don't know many people who are like, I'm not recording my webinars. I'm sorry. Like, this is the only time you're going to get this content. Everybody's recording them. They're going up on YouTube right after this, right? So something to just kind of keep in mind. But honestly, if you get value from using the Q&A in the chat, figure out the way as an attendee. This is an attendee tip. Figure out a way to use that chat. Like maybe if your thing's all about the chat, maybe you ask questions. Like, Jill, I would love if you're getting lost in the chat, maybe ask a question in the chat and get everybody else engaged on how to do it. And maybe the chat becomes your way of learning and interacting with people. This is another reason why also people are getting webinar fatigue is that chat is really the only way to engage with the other attendees. And that's why you need these full experiences. Jill, thank you so much. She said, kudos. You're awesome. Thank you so much. Patricia says yes. I don't remember what that was too. Roxanne asks, how soon do you see clients booking virtual events for large groups? I have people with 5,000 person events booking in Q4. I have people who are doing 2,000 person events that are next week. All over the place. It's happening right now. Like I hate to use the P word pivot, but everybody's got to pivot right now and make those changes when it comes to it. I think we're pretty far away from, I think, in-person experiences or being back to our new normal. Do I have any in 2021? Yes. Yeah. In fact, we were talking about that this week, is that a lot of people are actually booking for 2021. So good question. All right. We got 10 minutes left. What questions do you guys have? I'm happy to also like dance with my cat if you need me to as well. I'll go ahead. Oh, I forgot I posted this poll. Let's share these results. So I asked a question. Do you think that virtual events blank more than live events? Do you think that they cost more, less, or about the same? This is what I hear from everybody. Less. Everyone says that virtual events cost less than live events. Yes and no at the same time. Something important to know is, yes, to pull off a very simple, like for example, if we wanted to do this where Will came in and spoke, right? You would have the cost of flying me in. We'd have to get the venue. We probably would have had to provide food for people, right? But we're not having to do that now because you guys are probably all eating your breakfasts and things like that on your own. They are going to be more expensive. But here's the thing that to think about. Is this also the same exact experience that you wanted to create when you were doing it in person? You might think to yourself, well, no, we usually have networking as part of this, right? And usually people got fed. Okay. Well, that's where you have to reinvest the less money it took to recreate it and put it more into production value. You know, people, for example, are thinking about the fact that, yeah, you can get a speaker from anywhere and they'll present for free. But does the speaker that you want to have the right webcam, the right microphone, the right lighting, right? Those sort of things as well. And that cost might come in for you to get them what they need to have a good performance right before then. So good stuff, guys. This is really fantastic. I'm going to launch one more poll just because I have one more poll and we're running out of time. But curious to know on your guys' end, what's your guys' biggest struggles? All right. How soon do you see hybrid bookings and what size? Roxanne, you're like beating on me with these good questions. I don't have the answer to that. I haven't had anybody ask about in-person experiences. All my in-person experiences that we were creating, all like you guys, got put on hold, got canceled, got rescheduled. I haven't had a single client reschedule an in-person event yet. I'm also obviously not the biggest vendor in the entire world, and I also don't represent the entire market. So don't take my word as like gospel, as like this is what the market's going. But I haven't had anybody do in-person hybrid stuff. Everyone's talking about how can they build something that can leverage into hybrid when that time comes, but no one's like, we're for sure doing this hybrid. I will change that answer. I had one group that just started talking to us this week that says they're going to do their event in November and December, and it has to be hybrid. They feel, I would tell you right now in my gut opinion, I feel like they are jumping a little maybe too early, and I wouldn't want to book anything this year if I were a planner at least. But again, like I can't obviously only answer that question. I'm not the biggest vendor in the entire world. Shout out to Lorraine's doing a hybrid event in July. You are awesome. That is awesome. All right, good stuff, guys. How do you incentive an event virtually or provide entertainment? So that's where I jump back into the question. When you're asking how questions, drop back to the why. So Lorraine, I would ask the question of understanding your personas and understanding like why do you need to entertain them, right? So the question is like, if you're trying to incentivize, for example, a sales group, this is all your best sales reps for the year. They just crushed their Q4 goal. We need to give them something awesome. Well, the question becomes like, before we did that by doing trips and things like that. And I know this is really hard for your guys' group because we were literally built upon us flying people to awesome locations and giving them awesome experiences, right? But when it comes to, for example, the entertainment, it's like, okay, well, maybe they crushed their Q4 goal. Well, maybe we can do something for them to create an experience for each person individually. You know, it's especially tough right now where you can't leave your house. So like maybe I would say something like, maybe there's a way that you can create an awesome experience inside their house. So I don't know what that looks like, but maybe it's something like, here's an idea for, I don't know, this is what I when we sit in our ideation sessions with our clients. But like, if we could somehow, like, let's say, for example, before we used to take people to a racetrack and they all got to race Ferraris. But what if you could like pull up a Ferrari at somebody's house and say like, we're going to get you in here in quarantine way, do Ferrari racing and drive them to where it needs to go. And you're doing it individually for each person. Sure, it's not a collective group experience, but you're still giving that entertainment and incentive that you would normally do on there as well. So, then the hybrid events at first sight. Awesome. Good stuff, guys. But yeah, the how questions are hard because I don't understand your audience 100% and I don't understand the strategy, but think back to the strategy and why your incentives exist and why do you need entertainment and why did this piece of entertainment be successful in the first place? Then I usually move into the how portion as well. I know that's not the greatest answer to give, but hopefully the Ferrari example is something to get your wheels turning. All right, got 5 minutes left. I'll answer one more question. So if you got a question, you got to put it in the chat. Let's do a quick virtual wave and make sure everybody's awake real quick while we finish this on up. Everybody raise your hands up in the air. Nice. Oh, man. All right, get them up, get them up, get them up. Now, everybody put your hands down. And put your hands up. All right, awesome, cool. Good stuff. You guys can put your hands down. I always forget to tell people at the end to put your hands down. You can just leave them up in the air. So yeah, Roxanne asked how to take a incentive virtual. It just depends on, again, yeah, the why and the strategy portion. I would focus on that big thing. All right, good question, Lorraine. I'll answer on this last question that we have on here. How would you go about charging for a virtual event? Here's something really important. Time is of the essence, guys. So first thing is, if you're talking about like how much would I charge as a planner for a client, like make sure you're charging for your time that you guys are putting into research and learn this stuff right now. Second thing, if you're talking about how would I charge, like maybe sell tickets or something like that for a virtual event, I'm actually going to share on here. We did a whole blog on our website all about how to do pricing for virtual events. I would just recommend checking that out. But the important thing, here's a quick idea, is that, for example, let's say you take that model of spreading it across 30 days rather than doing it in 3 days. Well, now you have the option to maybe, for example, create a subscription model for your events. Wouldn't it be great, instead of someone paying one time for a ticket price and paying $400, instead they paid $40 a month and spread it across multiple months? Man, that would be incredible. It allows people to have a little bit less of an opt-in. It allows you to start building in this recurring revenue that's a little bit more productive as well. There's a really, really good book called The Automatic Customer. I'm going to share a link to it in the chat for you guys. But check out The Automatic Customer. It is a fantastic book that's all about how do you create recurring revenue within your company. And it really will help you guys kind of understand how can you think creatively about your business model as well. All right, I'm going to share some other last minute links for you guys as well into the chat. You guys got the virtual event planning checklist as well. Here's that in the link. I have a little bit more blown out of a webinar version of this that I kind of talk about this a little bit more in detail. If I talk too fast, you want to watch it again, feel free to check out that link. I also, if you guys are needing somebody to do strategy with and you want to request doing a strategy session with me, we do like these multi-day workshops where we build out your whole strategy or personas, all those things like that. I shared a link to that in the chat as well. And Also, as well, we have a weekly newsletter called the Weekly Sound Check. That weekly sound check is where we basically share all of our cool links and everything like that as well. I'm also missing the link to it, and I want to give it to you guys. We have a calculator that is all about how do you estimate how much it costs to do a virtual event. So we literally built a calculator that allows you to basically see how much it would cost for you to produce a virtual event with all the features you want and benefits and all that sort of stuff as well. So go ahead and check that out. I shared a link to that in the chat as well. And yeah. And again, if you're interested with working with Endless, there's a link to our pricing page as well. But I think that'll do it for today. I think we're at the end of our time. Todd, are we at the end of our time right now? I'm thinking so. Thank you guys. Roxanne, thank you so much. Lorraine, thank you guys so much in the chat. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Will. There's so many notes I took down. We definitely recorded this. I'm going to have to go back. I have so many notes. It's hard to take an hour and go through everything that everybody's asking about. So we'll definitely post this as soon as we can and send it out to everybody. But also kind of take all the different links and the checklist that you put together and somehow combine all that information and be able to send it out to the people that attended today. So I really want to thank you, Will. I know you're super busy with everything that you have going on. I'm sure your business has expanded over the last couple of weeks, and just spending an hour with us and a little bit more time during the rehearsals was fantastic. So I love your energy. Super excited about working with you in the future, and I'm sure several people on the call will probably be reaching out to you as well. And thanks again.
Thank you guys so much. Should we play some music for them on their way out? So give them a little bit of a dance party. All right, you guys. Here's some music on the way out. Thank you guys again so much, and we'll see you guys all really soon.